The hospital ship Times, Nightingale Times, floated through the empty space like a white dove among the stars. It was the largest medical vessel humanity had ever built. 3 kilometers long, bright lights glowed from 1,000 windows. The ship carried no weapons. It needed none. Every species in the galaxy knew what those white and gold markings meant. They meant healing. They meant safety. They meant mercy. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck and watched the stars. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had served on medical ships for 30 years. She had saved lives from 100 different species: human soldiers, alien refugees, even enemies pulled from burning wreckage. It did not matter to her what species they were. Pain was pain, suffering was suffering, and mercy belonged to everyone. "Commander," said a voice behind her. It was Dr. Chen, her chief medical officer. "The Valkorian refugees are settling in. The children are scared, but the nurses are helping them." Elena nodded. "And the Dreth patients?" "Stable. 3 will need surgery tomorrow." Dr. Chen paused. "Some of the crew are uncomfortable treating enemy soldiers. Then remind them why we are here," Elena said. Her voice was soft but firm. "We do not choose who deserves healing. We heal everyone. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us human." Dr. Chen smiled and walked away. The Times, Nightingale Times, had been traveling through neutral space for 2 weeks. They were near the contested fringe, where humanity fought a border war against the Kithari Dominion. The war had lasted 5 years. Many had died on both sides, but the Times, Nightingale Times, stayed out of the fighting. It only picked up the broken pieces afterward. On the bridge, Lieutenant Park monitored the sensors. Everything was quiet. A few cargo ships passed in the distance. Nothing unusual. He yawned and reached for his coffee. Then his screen flickered. "What the hell?" he whispered. 12 ships appeared on his sensors. They came out of faster-than-light travel all at once, surrounding the Times, Nightingale Times in a perfect circle. Their hulls were dark red. Their weapons were already glowing. Kethari warships. Lieutenant Park slammed the alarm button. Red lights flashed across the entire ship. Commander Vasquez ran onto the bridge, her heart pounding. "Report!" she shouted. 12 Kithari vessels, Park said. His voice was shaking. "They have weapons locked on us." Elena grabbed the communication console. "Kithari fleet. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Nations Hospital Ship Times, Nightingale, *. We are a medical vessel operating under the Galactic Accord. We carry no weapons. We are treating wounded from all species, including your own people. Please stand down." Silence. Then a face appeared on the screen. It was a Kethari. His scales were dark green, almost black. His eyes were yellow and cold like a snake. He wore the armor of a high commander. "I am Warlord Sithrak," he said. His voice was like grinding stone. "I know what your ship is." Elena felt ice in her stomach. "Then you know we are protected by galactic law. Attacking a hospital ship is a crime against all species." Sithrak laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Your laws mean nothing to me. Your mercy means nothing. You humans think kindness makes you strong. You treat our wounded soldiers and expect us to thank you. But I see the truth. Your mercy is weakness. And tonight, the galaxy will see it too." "Please," Elena said. She was not begging for herself. She was thinking of the 4,000 souls on her ship. The doctors, the nurses, the patients, the children in the pediatric ward who were already scared of the dark. There are children here. Innocent people. Your own wounded soldiers are in our medical bay. Please." Sithrak leaned closer to the screen. "Good. Let them all burn together. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who show mercy to the Kethari." The screen went black. "All hands," Elena shouted into the ship-wide intercom. Her voice was steady even though her hands were shaking. "This is the commander. Brace for impact. All medical staff, protect your patients. May God have mercy on us all." The first plasma lance hit the ship like the fist of an angry god. The deck tilted. Lights exploded. Elena was thrown against the wall. She heard screaming through the intercom. Fire alarms, hull breach warnings, the sounds of a ship dying. She pulled herself up and looked at the main screen. Holes were being torn through her beautiful ship. Deck after deck, ward after ward. She watched the pediatric section decompress into space, tiny bodies tumbling into the void. "No," she whispered. No, no, no. More impacts. The bridge shook. Sparks rained down. Lieutenant Park was dead, his body crumpled under a fallen beam. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, casting everything in bloody red. Elena crawled to the communication console. Her legs would not work. She looked down and saw metal sticking through her stomach. There was no pain yet, only cold. She activated the distress beacon. She activated the external cameras. If she was going to die, the galaxy would see the truth. They would see what the Cathari had done. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez," she said into the microphone. Blood bubbled on her lips. "Hospital ship times Nightingale *. We are under attack. Cathari forces. No weapons. We had no weapons. 4,000 souls. Doctors. Nurses. Children. They knew what we were. They knew. And they fired anyway." Another explosion rocked the ship. The ceiling collapsed. "Tell Earth," Elena whispered. "Tell them we stayed true. Tell them we showed mercy until the end. Tell them." She never finished. The Nightingale Times broke apart in a ball of fire and light. Pieces of white and gold scattered across the void. 4,217 people died in less than 8 minutes. Doctors who had healed thousands. Nurses who had held dying hands. Patients who had trusted humanity to save them. Children who had never hurt anyone. All gone. Warlord Sithrak watched the wreckage with satisfaction. His officers cheered. They had struck a blow against human weakness. They had proven that mercy was foolish. But they did not see the small human corvette hiding behind an asteroid 3,000 kilometers away. The Defiant Times arrived too late to help. But it was not too late to witness. Its cameras recorded everything. Every plasma blast. Every breaking hull. Every body spinning into the cold dark. Captain James Morrison watched with tears running down his face. His hands gripped the armrests until his knuckles turned white. "Sir," his communication officer said quietly, "should we transmit the recording?" Morrison nodded slowly. "Send it everywhere. Every human world. Every alien government. Every news network in the galaxy. Let them see. Let them all see what the Cathari have done." Within hours, the footage spread across 1,000 worlds, and on Earth, something ancient and terrible began to wake up. Something humanity had buried deep inside itself centuries ago. Something they had hoped they would never need again. The Cathari did not understand what they had done. They celebrated their victory. They mocked human weakness. They did not know that they had just signed their own death warrant. The galaxy waited for humanity to scream. They waited for angry speeches. They waited for threats of revenge. They waited for demands of justice, for calls to the Galactic Council, for all the noise that civilized species made when they were hurt. But Earth was silent. For 3 days, no human diplomat spoke. No military commander gave statements. No politician appeared on any screen. The communication channels between Earth and the rest of the galaxy went completely dark. It was as if humanity had simply disappeared. This silence scared the other species more than any threat could have. Ambassador Trelvok of the Valkorian Consortium was one of humanity's oldest friends. His people had traded with humans for over a century. He considered himself an expert on human behavior, so when the silence stretched into its 4th day, he traveled to Earth himself to find answers. What he found changed him forever. He landed in Geneva, the capital of the United Earth government. The streets were quiet. People walked with their heads down. Nobody smiled. Nobody talked. There was no crying, no shouting, no protests. Just silence. Heavy, terrible silence. A military officer met him at the spaceport. The man's face was like stone. "Ambassador," the officer said, "the president will see you now." Trelvok followed him to the government building. Inside, he passed hundreds of workers. All of them were busy. All of them were quiet. Screens showed maps of Cathari space. Numbers, fleet positions, production charts. Everything was moving, but nothing made sound. President Sarah Chen sat behind her desk. She was a small woman with black hair and dark eyes. Trelvok had met her many times before. She had always been warm and friendly. Now her face showed nothing at all. "Ambassador," she said. "Thank you for coming, President Chen." Trelvok sat down carefully, his 4 legs folded beneath him. "The consortium is deeply sorry for your loss. The attack on the Nightingale Times was a crime against all civilized species. We stand ready to support any action you wish to take through the Galactic Council. President Chen said nothing for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not a warm smile. The Galactic Council, she repeated. Yes, they have offered to hold hearings, to investigate, to perhaps, eventually, issue a formal condemnation. She leaned forward. Ambassador, do you know how many children died on that ship? Trelvok shifted uncomfortably. I do not have the exact number. 342. The youngest was 4 months old. Her name was Emma. She was in the pediatric ward because she had a heart condition. Our doctors had just saved her life. President Chen's voice did not shake. It was perfectly calm. The Kethari burned her alive. It was a terrible tragedy. It was not a tragedy, President Chen interrupted. A tragedy is an accident. This was murder. Deliberate, planned murder of the innocent. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was gray. Do you know what Article Omega is, Ambassador? Trelvok felt his blood run cold. He had heard the term once, long ago, in an old history file. I believed it was a myth. It is not a myth. It is the legal authorization for total war. We have used it only once before, during the AI rebellions 200 years ago. It removes all limits on military production. It unlocks all sealed technologies. It calls every citizen to serve. She turned to face him. I signed Article Omega 2 hours after we received the footage from the Times Nightingale asterisk. Trelvok could not speak. His translator struggled to process his shock. Go home, Ambassador, President Chen said. Tell your government what you have seen. Tell them to stay out of our way. And tell them. She paused. Tell them that humanity remembers who stood with us in our grief. We will remember it for a very long time. Trelvok left Earth that night. He filed his report with shaking hands. His government read it in silence. The Valkorian Fleet Command quietly moved all their ships away from human borders. Not because they feared attack. Because they did not want to be nearby when the storm broke. Meanwhile, across human space, the machine of war began to turn. Factories that made toys began making bullets. Factories that made ships began making warships. Scientists who studied medicine began studying weapons. Old soldiers who had retired to farms and quiet lives received messages on their screens. Your species needs you. Will you answer? Every single one of them answered yes. Admiral Marcus Stone stood in the command center of Earth's largest military station. He was 70 years old, with white hair and a face full of scars. He had fought in 3 wars and won them all. He had retired 5 years ago, expecting to die peacefully in his garden. Now he wore his uniform again, and he felt something he had not felt in decades. Not anger, not hatred, something colder, something patient. Purpose. Report, he said. His aide pulled up a holographic display. Ships. Thousands of ships. Some were new. Some were old designs that had been kept in storage. Some were experimental vessels that had never been tested in combat. Fleet strength is at 40% of maximum, the aide said. We will reach 60% in 2 weeks. Full mobilization in 6 weeks. Too slow, Stone said. Push it faster. Sir, the crews need training. Then train them faster. I want every ship that can fly in space within 30 days. Stone looked at the map of Kethari territory. They think we are weak because we showed mercy. They think we are soft because we heal our enemies. They are about to learn how wrong they are. Far across the galaxy, High Warlord Sithrak received intelligence reports about human activity. His advisors warned him that something strange was happening. Human factories were producing at impossible rates. Human ships were gathering in unusual numbers. Sithrak dismissed their concerns. Let them prepare, he said. Humans are weak. They value life too much to fight properly. They will make noise. Then they will negotiate. Then they will accept whatever terms we offer. It is what soft species do. His admirals nodded. They believed him. They had seen the footage of the Times Nightingale Times burning. They had seen how easily the hospital ship died. If that was the best humanity could offer, they had nothing to fear. They did not know about the weapons humanity kept locked away, the technologies banned after ancient wars, the strategies too terrible to use against civilized enemies. They did not know that humanity had rules for war, and that those rules only applied when the enemy deserved them. The Kethari had attacked a hospital ship. They had killed children. They had laughed about it. They had removed themselves from the protection of human mercy. On Earth, In a sealed vault beneath the military command center, technicians unlocked doors that had been closed for 200 years. Inside were weapons that could crack planets, viruses that could end species, machines that could turn stars into bombs. Admiral Stone looked at the inventory list. His face showed no emotion. "Prepare everything," he said. "We may not need all of it, but I want options." The technician hesitated. "Sir, some of these weapons, they were banned for a reason." Stone turned to look at him. "Yes, they were banned because we believed the galaxy deserved our restraint. We believed that even our enemies deserved mercy." He picked up a data pad showing the faces of the children who died on the Times Nightingale asterisk. Quote, "The Kethari have shown us what our mercy is worth to them. Now we will show them what our wrath is worth." He walked away, leaving the technicians to their work. In the darkness of space, humanity gathered its strength. Silent, patient, deadly. The thunder was coming, and when it arrived, the galaxy would never be the same. The first attack came without warning, but it did not come from warships. On 47 Kethari worlds, humans who had lived there for decades suddenly stopped being merchants and workers and teachers. They became ghosts. Shadows with knives, whispers in the dark. These were sleeper agents. Humanity had planted them years ago, hoping they would never be needed. They lived normal lives. They made friends. They learned the language and the culture. They waited. Now they stopped waiting. Communication towers exploded in the middle of the night. Defense computers received false information that made their weapons point at empty space. Power stations failed at exactly the wrong moment. 3 Kethari warlords died in their sleep, poisoned by servants they had trusted for years. By the time the sun rose, the Kethari Dominion was blind and confused. They could not talk to each other. They could not coordinate their fleets. They did not know what was real and what was lies fed into their systems. And then the human fleet arrived. Admiral Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, the dreadnought Times Fury of Hippocrates asterisk. It was the largest warship humanity had ever built. Its hull was covered with names, 4,217 names. Every person who died on the Times Nightingale asterisk. Every doctor, every nurse, every child. Around him, 2,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They appeared around Kethvros, the largest military shipyard in the Dominion, the place where the ships that killed the Times Nightingale Times were built. The Kethari garrison scrambled to respond. They had expected more time. They had expected warnings. They had expected negotiations. They got none of these things. "All ships," Admiral Stone said into his communicator. His voice was calm and cold. "Remember the Nightingale. Fire at will." The void lit up with weapons fire. Human ships moved with perfect coordination. They had trained for this. They had planned for this. Every captain knew exactly where to be and what to do. The Kethari defenders, confused by false information and broken communications, could not organize a proper defense. Kethari battleships exploded one after another. The shipyards, massive structures that had built warships for centuries, were torn apart by concentrated fire. Fuel depots went up in flames that could be seen from the planet below. Debris filled the space around Kethvros like a growing cloud of death. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, not a single Kethari military vessel remained in the system. The shipyards were gone. The orbital defense platforms were gone. Everything was gone, and humanity had not lost a single ship. Captain Torres of the Destroyer Times Vengeance Times looked at the destruction on her screen. She should have felt satisfaction. She should have felt justice. Instead, she felt empty. "Is this enough?" she asked her first officer quietly. "Will this bring them back?" Her first officer, a young man named Rodriguez, shook his head. "No, Captain. Nothing will bring them back, but this will make sure it never happens again." Torres nodded slowly. "That would have to be enough." Across the galaxy, other species watched in shock. The Dreth hegemony, which had been fighting humanity for territory, suddenly withdrew all their ships from the border. They sent a message of neutrality and asked for peace talks. The Ymirian Collective, a proud civilization that had never bowed to anyone, sent tribute ships to Earth with gifts and promises of friendship. But it was the Orvani who spoke the most important words. The Orvani were the oldest species in the known galaxy. They had watched younger civilizations rise and fall for over 100,000 years. They rarely spoke to anyone. They considered themselves above the petty conflicts of lesser beings. Now, for the first time in 10,000 years, they sent a message to the Galactic Council. "We have observed the humans since they first reached the stars," the message said. "We believed they were like other young species, violent, then peaceful, aggressive, then tame. We believed they had evolved beyond their primitive instincts. We were wrong. The humans have not evolved beyond their nature. They have only learned to control it. They showed the galaxy a mask of kindness and mercy. The Kethari have torn that mask away. What lies beneath is something far older and far more dangerous than any species we have ever seen. Our advice to the galaxy is simple. Do not provoke the humans. Do not harm their innocent. Do not test their patience, because when humans stop being merciful, they become something terrible. Something that does not stop until its enemies are dust." High Warlord Sithrak received this message. He read it 3 times. For the first time since the attack on the Times Nightingale asterisk, he felt something cold crawling up his spine. Fear, but he could not show fear to his people. He could not admit that he had made a mistake. So he did the only thing he could do. He gathered his remaining fleets and prepared for a counterattack. "We will strike their colony at Nova Helsinki," he told his admirals. 12 million humans live there. We will threaten to destroy it unless they surrender. Humans value life. They will negotiate to save their people." His admirals agreed. It was a good plan. Humans always negotiated when lives were at stake. They did not understand that the rules had changed. Admiral Stone received intelligence about the Kethari fleet movements. He smiled for the first time since the war began. It was not a pleasant smile. "They are going to Nova Helsinki," he said to his staff. "Perfect, sir." His tactical officer looked confused. "Should we not warn the colony? Evacuate the civilians?" "The civilians are already in bunkers," Stone said. "They have been there since the war began. We knew the Kethari would try something like this." He pulled up a holographic map. "Move the 2nd, 5th, and 9th battle groups to Nova Helsinki. We will be there before they arrive." "That is over 2,000 ships, sir." "Yes." Stone looked at the map with cold eyes. "I want this to be the largest battle in galactic history. I want every species in this galaxy to see what happens to those who attack our people. I want the Kethari to understand that there is no escape, no negotiation, no mercy." He paused. Not anymore. The human fleets began to move. Thousands of ships, carrying millions of soldiers, sailing toward a single point in space. They did not hurry. They did not hide. They wanted the Kethari to see them coming. They wanted the Kethari to know what was waiting for them. On the bridge of the Times Fury of Hippocrates asterisk, a young officer approached Admiral Stone. She was barely 20 years old. Her face was pale. "Sir," she said quietly, "my sister was a nurse on the Times Nightingale asterisk. She used to tell me that mercy was the greatest strength, that healing was more important than hurting." Tears formed in her eyes. "What would she think of what we are doing?" Stone was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face her. "I think she would understand," he said. "Mercy is a gift we give to those who deserve it. Your sister gave that gift freely, to everyone, even enemies, and they killed her for it." He put a hand on her shoulder. "We are not abandoning mercy, Lieutenant. We are protecting it. We are making sure that no one ever thinks they can attack our healers again. We are teaching the galaxy that our kindness is a choice, not a weakness. And choices can change." The young officer nodded slowly. She wiped her eyes and returned to her station. The fleet sailed on, toward the coming battle, toward the reckoning that the Kethari had brought upon themselves. The red tide was rising, and nothing in the galaxy could stop it now. Nova Helsinki hung in space like a blue and green jewel. 12 million humans lived on its surface. Cities, farms, schools, families. It was a peaceful colony, far from the front lines of any war. The people there had thought they were safe. Now they waited in underground bunkers while the fate of the galaxy was decided above them. High Warlord Sithrak brought 800 warships to Nova Helsinki. It was the largest Kethari fleet ever assembled. Every ship that could fly, every weapon that could fire, every soldier that could fight. This was everything the Dominion had left. Sithrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Times Dominion's Pride asterisk. He looked at the planet below with hungry eyes. "Soon," he said to his officers, Soon the humans will beg for mercy. They will give us whatever we want to save their precious colonists. And then the galaxy will see that the Kethari are still strong. Warlord, said his sensor officer. I am detecting ships on the far side of the planet. Sithrak smiled. Of course, a small defense fleet. We expected this. How many ships? The sensor officer was quiet for a moment. His face went pale. His scales turned a sickly yellow color. Warlord, he whispered. I count. Over 2,000 ships. The bridge went silent. Sithrak grabbed the sensor console and looked at the readings himself. His heart stopped. The human fleet was massive. It stretched across space like a wall of steel and fire. Dreadnoughts, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, carriers launching fighters like swarms of angry insects. And at the center of it all, the Time's Fury of Hippocrates *, the largest warship in human history. Its hull painted with the names of the dead. A communication signal came through. Sithrak accepted it with trembling hands. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the screen. The human looked calm, almost bored, as if 800 enemy warships were nothing to worry about. Warlord Sithrak, Stone said. I have been looking forward to meeting you. Sithrak forced himself to stand straight. Admiral, you cannot win this battle. Even with your superior numbers, the Kethari will fight to the last ship. Many of your people will die. Perhaps. Stone nodded slowly. But you should know something about humans, Warlord. We do not fight wars to avoid dying. We fight wars to make sure our deaths mean something. He leaned forward. You attacked a hospital ship. You killed our healers. You killed our children. And then you laughed about it. You called our mercy weakness. Stone's eyes grew cold. You were wrong. This is war, Sithrak said. There are no rules in war. You are right, Stone replied. There are no rules. Not anymore. Not for you. He looked directly into Sithrak's eyes. I want you to understand something, Warlord. This is not a battle. Battles have winners and losers. This is not war. War has negotiations and treaties. What is about to happen here is something else. This is consequence. This is what happens when you cross a line that should never be crossed. This is what happens when you make humanity remember what we truly are. The screen went black. Sithrak stared at the empty display. For a moment, he could not move. Then he shook himself and turned to his officers. All ships, attack formation. We will break through their lines and threaten the planet. They will not fire on us if we have hostages. The Kethari fleet surged forward. The Battle of Nova Helsinki had begun. For 3 days, space burned. Human and Kethari ships clashed in a storm of plasma and metal. Explosions lit up the void like new stars being born. Wreckage tumbled through the darkness. Bodies floated in the cold silence between moments of violence. The Kethari fought bravely. They were warriors born and raised for combat. They did not fear death. But the humans were something different. Something that did not make sense to the Kethari mind. Human ships did not retreat. Even when they were damaged. Even when they were dying. Crippled human vessels rammed into Kethari ships rather than surrender. Human pilots flew suicide runs into enemy formations. Human crews fought until their ships were literally falling apart around them. A Kethari captain managed to capture a damaged human destroyer. He expected to find frightened prisoners begging for mercy. Instead, he found the crew had destroyed their own engines, killing themselves and taking half his boarding party with them. On the second day, Sithrak realized he could not win. The human fleet was simply too large, too determined, too willing to pay any price. For every human ship that died, 3 Kethari ships fell. He tried to retreat. Human ships blocked every escape route. He tried to negotiate. His communications went unanswered. He tried to threaten the planet. Human ships formed a wall between his weapons and the colonists below. By the 3rd day, Sithrak had only 100 ships left. His flagship was damaged. His crew was exhausted. His hopes were dead. A communication signal came through. Admiral Stone appeared again. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship was calm and organized. Stone did not look tired. He looked satisfied. Warlord, Stone said, your fleet is destroyed. Your options are gone. Surrender now, and your surviving crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Sithrak laughed bitterly. Laws of war? You said there were no rules. I said there were no rules for you, Stone replied. Your soldiers followed orders. They will be treated fairly. But you, warlord, you gave the order. You chose to attack that hospital ship. You chose to kill those children. Stone's face hardened. You will face justice. And if I refuse, then you die here, and your species loses even more of its future. Stone shrugged. The choice is yours. But I should warn you. We have captured your communications. We know about your bioweapon. Sithrak felt his blood freeze. The bioweapon was his final plan. A secret virus designed to kill every human in the galaxy. He had hidden it on a stealth ship, ready to launch toward Earth if the war went badly. You know nothing, Sithrak said. We know everything, Stone replied. Your stealth ship was captured 6 hours ago. The virus is in our hands now. He leaned forward. Did you really think we would not anticipate this? Did you really think we would fight a war without preparing for every possibility? Sithrak had no answer. Here is what will happen, Stone continued. You will surrender. You will be taken to face trial before a galactic court. Your species will survive. Your people will live. The Kethari will have a future. He paused. Or, you can fight to the death, and we will continue to your homeworld. We will remove your entire military capability, and we will leave your people defenseless in a hostile galaxy. You would not destroy us, Sithrak said. You are humans. You show mercy. Stone's eyes were like ice. We showed mercy to the Times Nightingale asterisk, and you burned it. We showed mercy to children, and you killed them. Mercy is a choice, warlord. And right now, I am choosing to offer you survival instead of extinction. That is more mercy than you deserve. He looked at Sithrak with something like pity. Take it, for your people's sake. If not your own. The communication ended. Sithrak stood alone on his damaged bridge. Around him, his officers waited in silence. Some of them had lost family in the battle. Some of them were wounded. All of them were tired. He thought about fighting to the death. He thought about dying with honor, like a true Kethari warrior. Then he thought about his children, his grandchildren, the future generations who would suffer for his pride. He closed his eyes. Signal the fleet, he said quietly. We surrender. 17 Kethari ships powered down their weapons and opened their doors to human boarding parties. The Battle of Nova Helsinki was over. It was the largest battle in galactic history. 800 Kethari ships had entered the system. 17 survived. The Dominion's military power was broken. Their war machine was dust, and humanity was just getting started. Admiral Stone watched the surrender from his bridge. His officers cheered. Some of them cried. The war was nearly over. But Stone did not celebrate. He looked at the wreckage floating in space. Human ships and Kethari ships. Broken together. Soldiers from both sides. Dead together. What are your orders, sir? Asked his first officer. Stone was silent for a moment. Then he stood up. Set course for Kethvara Prime, he said. The Dominion's homeworld. We are going to end this war, once and for all. The fleet began to move. Behind them, Nova Helsinki glowed peacefully in the starlight. 12 million lives, saved. Ahead of them, a reckoning waited, and the galaxy held its breath. Kethvara Prime was a beautiful world. Blue oceans stretched between green continents. Mountains rose toward the sky. Cities glittered with lights in the growing darkness. 1 billion Kethari lived on its surface. Farmers, teachers, artists, children who had never seen a war. Now the human fleet surrounded their world like a ring of fire. Admiral Stone stood on the observation deck of the Times Fury of Hippocrates Times and looked down at the planet. It would be so easy to destroy it. His ships carried weapons that could crack the surface like an egg. He could end the Kethari species in a single day, but that was not why he had come. Sir, said his tactical officer, orbital defenses are neutralized. Ground defenses are disabled. The capital city is surrounded by our forces. Stone nodded. Any sign of the High Council? They are hiding in the government building. Our sensors show over 200 life signs inside. Good. Stone turned to face his staff. Begin the broadcast. I want every species in the galaxy to hear this. The communication arrays activated. Across 1,000 worlds, screens flickered to life. Billions of beings watched as Admiral Marcus Stone, the human who had led the greatest military campaign in galactic history, prepared to speak. People of the galaxy. Stone began. His voice was calm and clear. You have watched us fight. You have seen what happens when humanity is pushed beyond mercy. You have wondered what we would do when we won." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "The Cathari attacked a hospital ship. They killed 4,000 innocent people, including 342 children. They created a bioweapon designed to kill every human in the galaxy. They laughed at our kindness and called it weakness." Behind him, the planet Kethvara Prime filled the viewport. "We could destroy them. We have the power to end their species today. No one could stop us. No one would blame us. Justice, some would say, has earned us that right." Stone shook his head slowly. "But we will not do this. Because if we destroy the Kethari for the crimes of their leaders, we become exactly what they thought we were. We become monsters. We prove that might makes right. We teach the galaxy that cruelty is the only language that matters." He turned to look at the planet. "Instead, we choose to be what the crew of the Nightingale Times believed we were. We choose to be better. Not because the Kethari deserve mercy. They do not. But because we deserve to give it. Because mercy is not weakness, it is strength. It is the hardest thing in the universe to offer kindness to those who have hurt you. And yet, that is exactly what we will do." The broadcast continued as human forces landed on Kethvara Prime. They did not burn cities. They did not kill civilians. They surrounded the government building and waited. Inside, the High Council trembled with fear. They expected death. They expected revenge. They expected humans to do what any Kethari would do in their position. Instead, the doors opened, and a single human officer walked in. She was unarmed. She carried only a document. "High Council of the Kethari Dominion," she said. "You are under arrest for crimes against sentient life. You will be taken to a neutral world where a galactic tribunal has been formed. You will face trial. You will receive legal representation. You will have the chance to defend yourselves." The council members stared at her in disbelief. You are not going to kill us?" asked one of them. The officer smiled faintly. "No, that would be too easy. You will live. You will watch your crimes displayed before the galaxy. You will hear the testimony of survivors. You will see the faces of the children you killed." Her smile faded. "Death is an escape, council members. We are not going to let you escape." The trials lasted 3 months. Evidence was presented. Testimony was heard. Kethari judges sat alongside judges from 12 other species, including humans. The proceedings were broadcast everywhere. Warlord Sithrak was found guilty of crimes against sentient life. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his days on a prison moon, tending gardens that would supply medical ships with healing herbs. Every day, he would work to create the medicine that would save lives. Every night, he would sleep alone in a small cell, surrounded by silence. It was a fitting punishment. And somehow, it was worse than death. The Kethari Dominion was dissolved. But the Kethari people were not conquered. Instead, they were offered membership in a new galactic coalition. They would have rights. They would have representation. They would have a voice. Many accepted. Not all, but many. In the months that followed, something remarkable happened. Young Kethari, who had grown up hating humans, began to work alongside them. Old warriors who had spent their lives preparing for war learned to build instead of destroy. The wounds did not heal overnight. Some never healed at all. But slowly, carefully, 2 species that had tried to kill each other began to learn how to live together. 1 year after the attack on the Nightingale asterisk, a new ship launched from Earth's orbital shipyards. The Nightingale 2 times rose toward the stars. Its hull was painted white and gold, just like the original. Its wards were filled with the most advanced medical equipment humanity had ever built. Its crew wore uniforms with a simple patch on their shoulders, a dove carrying an olive branch. But this time, the crew was different. Human doctors worked alongside Kethari nurses. Human surgeons taught their skills to Kethari medical students. The very species that had destroyed the first Nightingale times now helped to crew the second. Commander Yiran was a Kethari female who had lost her entire family in the war. She had hated humans with every fiber of her being. She had wanted revenge. She had wanted blood. Instead, she had found something else. "Course is set, Dr. Chen," she said to the human physician beside her. "We will reach the plague zone in 3 days." Dr. Chen, whose sister had died on the original Nightingale asterisk, nodded. "Thank you, Commander. Let us save some lives." They looked at each other. Once, they would have been enemies. Now, they were something new, something that had never existed before. On Earth, Ambassador Trelvok watched the launch beside Admiral Stone, who had retired after the war. The old soldier looked tired but peaceful. "You could have destroyed them," Trelvok said quietly. "You could have ended their species. The galaxy would have understood. Why did you show mercy?" Stone was silent for a long moment. He watched the Times Nightingale 2 times climb toward the stars, its lights getting smaller and smaller. "Because cruelty is easy," he finally said. "Anyone can be cruel. It takes no strength to hurt those who hurt you. But to offer mercy after rage, to choose healing over revenge, that is what makes us human." He smiled faintly. "My wife was a doctor on the original Times, Nightingale *. She used to say that the measure of a species is not how they treat their friends, but how they treat their enemies. She sounds wise. She was the wisest person I ever knew." Stone's eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "I wanted to burn their world. I wanted to make them pay for what they took from me. And I could have. I had the power. I had the right." He shook his head. "But I kept hearing her voice, telling me that revenge is a fire that burns the one who holds it, telling me that the only way to honor the dead is to become better, not worse." Trelvok was quiet for a moment. "And the warning? Your final words in the broadcast? You said mercy is a choice that can change." Stone turned to look at the alien ambassador. "The Kethari are not the only ones who will remember this war," he said. "Every species in the galaxy watched what happened. They saw us show mercy when we had every reason to show none. They saw us choose justice over revenge. They saw us help our enemies become something better." He paused. "But they also saw what we did before that mercy. They saw us mobilize in days what other species take years to build. They saw us tear through the greatest military power in the region like it was made of paper. They saw our people fight to the last breath rather than surrender." Stone's eyes grew cold. "They know now that our kindness is a gift, not a weakness. They know that we choose to be merciful because we are strong enough to be anything we want. And if another species attacks your hospital ships," Stone smiled, but there was no warmth in it, "then the galaxy will see the other side of humanity. The side we have kept buried for 1,000 years. The side that conquered our own planet long before we reached the stars." He looked up at the distant light of the Times Nightingale 2 *. "We prefer mercy. We prefer healing. We prefer peace. But we are capable of being something else entirely. And now everyone knows it." Trelvok shivered. Even after all he had seen, even after years of friendship with humans, he felt a chill run down his spine. "I will make sure my government remembers," he said quietly. "Good." Stone nodded. "Because we do not want to remind anyone again." The Times Nightingale 2 times vanished into the light of 1,000 stars. Its white and gold hull gleamed in the darkness, a symbol of hope and healing for every species that needed it. But on its bridge, next to the medical supplies and healing tools, there was a small display case. Inside it, preserved forever, was a piece of hull from the original Times Nightingale *, burned and twisted by plasma fire, still marked with the name of the ship that had died because it dared to show mercy, a reminder, a warning, a promise. Humanity would heal the galaxy. They would save lives. They would offer kindness to friends and enemies alike, but they would never, ever forget, and neither would anyone else.